Hello, friends. My name is Host Eric. I'm the host of Talking with Famous People. And today I've got a very special video for you. It's a serious video, and also, hopefully, it's trying to provide clarity on what ultimately very decision can be. If you're watching this, it's possible you are asking yourself this question: should you break up? And I've got 20 reasons why. If you experience any of these, basically, you break up. One, physical violence. No-brainer, cut dry. There's no excuse for it. Neither partner should use it. Occasionally in a relationship, the dude will tolerate his woman sort of half-assedly hitting him occasionally. I mean, but there's a pretty clear somebody in anger or do something. It's actual physical violence for any other reason, really, but you gotta go. No, not even. A lot of people say how much you should tolerate it. That one, not once. You catch your partner overtly lying about something that matters more than once. You need to be with an honest person, ultimately. Everybody be with somebody who they can trust and who behaves in a trustworthy fashion. If your partner is overtly lying, that means not lying by omission, but you know, by something that you about. They know the truth. But, you really can't be with a liar and have it work out long term. Now, obviously, with something like this, people may overreact to the idea of lying a lot of times. There's a lot of white lies people tell us stuff. So, what I mean by this is, if you can't rely on your partner to tell you the truth, and things that are important to you that they tell you the truth, then you gotta go. You'll never have a healthy relationship if you can't trust your partner and things you need to trust them about. I'm not talking about fidelity or anything. I'm just saying, if you expect their words to be true, and you say it's important to me that they are and they're not, then and they try to trick you, then you really can't trust them. They're not a person of good character. Number 3, your partner threatens to break up with you on at least 2 separate occasions. One behavior that sometimes happens in relationships is that one, or maybe even both, but usually it's just one of the partners will use the threat of a breakup to try to leverage their partner, or will intimate that they want to break up a lot to try to make their partner feel less secure and I guess therefore more compliant. It's an abusive behavior. It's not tolerable. I mean, you shouldn't ever tolerate this, because what they're telling you is you are not of value to me. That getting my way right now, or hurting you right now because I'm mad, or whatever is more important to me than you will ever be. And you just got to take them at face value. When they threaten to break up a couple times, they're saying to you, I'm not willing to be there for you when the chips are down. Number 4, your partner usually approaches things as a lone wolf, not as a partner. Not everybody in this world really gets how to be a partner in a romantic relationship. Some people get habituated to function as an independent operator, and may additionally think they know they don't want somebody who's super needy. They want somebody who's independent in a relationship. They want them to have their own lives. Well, that's all well and good, but if they actually don't behave like a partner, in other words, if they don't like how things are going for you, they cut loose of you in some fashion. If they're not cooperative and seeing problems as team problems to be solved, then, and it's persistent over time, then you really need to break up with them, because you can't change that. You can't convince somebody who's fundamentally a lone wolf to be a partner. Number 5, your partner often uses ontological rather than behavioral critiques. So there's always going to be critiques leveled back and forth, some of them, between loving partners. And so we have to be able to distinguish then between acceptable kind of critiques and not. An ontological critique might be, it could be said to be something that uses the be verb. You are lazy, you are stupid, you are insecure, you are ugly, whatever. A behavioral critique says, you behaved badly there. When you said that to me, that wasn't okay. A behavioral critique is acceptable because it assumes the bad behavior deviates from a fundamentally good person. The ontological critique, like this boy is delivering to this girl right here, he's not saying your behavior earlier was poo-poo head like. He's saying you are a poo-poo head. So, Number 6, your partner repeatedly dismisses your feelings unjustified, overly sensitive, crazy, or so forth. Some people call this gaslighting, but I think that's a misunderstanding of gaslighting, actually. This is his own thing. And this poster is right. You're not too sensitive. You are not overreacting. If it hurts you, it hurts you. If your partner doesn't care that you're hurting, tells you you're not hurting, you're not allowed to hurt, you shouldn't be hurting, you're not justified in hurting, and they do this repeatedly, then they haven't reached a state of sufficient optimality to adequately value another person being in a loving relationship. Your partner repeatedly portrays you in a bad light in front of other people. I was watching a Jordan Peterson video that actually prompted me to decide to make this video. And it began with this, with this issue here. And he conveyed that, of course, how one behaves with one's romantic partner is not specific to those two people. It's universal. One doesn't trash talk one's romantic partner in public, and one doesn't do it because you happen to have a partner who's good enough to not trash talk. It's because you indicate that when you're a couple and you're committed, then whatever you say about the other person is what you're saying about yourself, basically. This ties in with the lone wolf thing. It's lone wolf types that will do this. It's not being partner. I don't know how, maybe. Your partner repeatedly gaslights by a projection. This is what I consider real gaslighting is. It's often just an expression of projection, but it can be convincing depending on who's delivering it. What do I mean by this? Well, let's say that you have a legitimate complaint about your wife speaking rudely to you or something, and you try to raise that legitimate complaint, and all of a sudden you start hearing a bunch of attacks about how you always speak rudely to her, how you're disrespectful to her, and any little possible piece of ammunition that might be twisted to be interpreted that way gets interpreted that way and thrown at you. There's an attempt to install in you a false set of beliefs about yourself as a consequence. It's usually, like I said, an effective projection. The person is projecting their own shit onto you. Consciously or unconsciously, it's hard to say. It differs between people. But this kind of thing where you're being described in ways that render you reduced into a certain box and burden you with ontological doubt and maybe even pathology that's undeserved. Sometimes it is deserved, If you've got somebody who's very damaged and is expressing that damage, you've got a couple of choices. You can say this person's abusive, this person's evil, or this person needs to be talked about with some sort of pathologization, whether it be a response to trauma or a personality disorder or whatever. So sometimes you're not really left with a choice but to pathologize or something worse. Regardless, you should never be the one initiating that. It's possible that your partner is initiating a bunch of ontological assault at you, or relational assault, even you'd say, attacking the relationship itself, the foundation on which the relationship is or should be built, which is mutual affection and respect. You aren't displaying respect to somebody if you're projecting your shit onto them. If you're saying, I can't handle the reality here that I have flaws and I'm human and need to admit when I'm wrong and have to be fair, and so I can handle that reality, I'm going to project everything evil that I am doing onto you, and hopefully you'll internalize it and be sort of destabilized so much that you won't know you'll be paralyzed into inaction of some sort. Well, if somebody's doing that to you, you need to leave. And partner unfaithful, no exceptions, you should leave immediately. No, just instantly. There's zero chance that relationship will ever be salvaged. People will tell you otherwise. Don't believe them. When they say, oh yeah, we came back together and we were okay after all. What they're really saying is, I gave up on myself. I gave up demanding that I be loved properly by a person who knows how to love properly. Unless you're 18 years old, in which case, maybe teenagers sometimes are unfaithful once, learn from it, never do it again, that kind of thing. Happened to me. I was unfaithful once when I was 18. And I was like, whoa, that's what that is? I don't like this at all. She's sad. I feel, never do it again. If you're 35 and you're unfaithful, you're going to be unfaithful the rest of your life. You've probably been unfaithful multiple times before. If you are an unfaithful person, just leave that relationship. Save your partner a little bit of heartache or something before you cheat. However, if you're cheated upon, immediately leave and do not even consider ever getting back with them. There's zero chance it will work. You're just putting yourself through more heartache. This isn't something I've experienced since my first marriage a long time ago, but I know it's extremely painful. If you've experienced infidelity, the receiving end of it, so to speak, the cuckold or the scorned wife or whatever you want to call it, it's devastatingly painful. Number 10, your partner repeatedly engages. Your partner, not your Peter, engages in problem admiration. Problem admiration might be called yeah, but in certain excuses. This is a picture I found on Google Images that seemed like as close as I could get to the idea of problem admiration. Problem admiration is when your partner comes to you with some sort of complaint, maybe legitimate, or request, legitimate, or whatever, or saying, here's a problem, and I'm just really frustrated with you because this problem has been persisting. And you go, okay, well, here's some possible solutions. Yeah, but that's not going to work. Okay, well, you've indicated blah, 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 so how about this? No, that's not going to work. You don't understand. This problem is too big. We can't possibly solve it. That's problem admiration. A lot of people do it. Not a lot, but a fair number of people do it. You might also call them chronic complainers. But most importantly in the problem admiration component is this active resistance to and opposition to and undermining of actual possible things that would produce progress. If your partner is constantly opposing you making the relationship better, you gotta go. Number 11, your partner cannot admit fault. Every relationship must include mutual sacrifice. One partner should say, I was wrong about this. The other partner should say, well, I was wrong about this. There needs to be mutuality and reciprocity. If your partner is unable to admit fault, whether or not they're blaming you for shit, doesn't matter. If they think, well, nobody should have to ever admit fault in this relationship, or they just won't admit it themselves, or whether they, even if they admit they won't admit fault. So that's just my quirk, or whatever. It doesn't matter. You have to leave that relationship because you're dooming yourself to a lifetime of unfairness, in which resentment will just build and build and build and build and build. Neither of you want that. Okay, let's go to number 12. Your partner repeatedly makes communication opportunities into adversarial win-loss exchanges. So, let's say your partner does, unlike 11, partner can admit some fault, but they want to make sure that every time they win that calculus, they go, okay, well, I'll admit that, but you did this and this and this. And every time you try to talk to them and communicate something, you think you've been heard, and they say something snarky the last thing before you leave to make sure that they win and you lose again. If they want you to lose all the time, time to go. Number 13, your partner repeatedly ignores you, gives you the silent treatment, or purposely withholds affection in efforts to attain your compliance. So a lot of these have some sort of leverage component to them. There are clear boundaries as to what kind of leverage and when and in what context that one ought to even ever attempt in a relationship. The ideal scenario is neither party ever feels leveraged or pressured into anything, that all agreements are mutual and genuinely attained consensus rather than pushed through something that one partner doesn't want. When you leverage things like your affection or your your willingness to communicate with your partner in order to get them to obey or be punished or something, you're destroying the relationship. And if somebody's doing this to you often or relatively often, it's time to leave. Number 14, your partner repeatedly uses guilt, duty, or value critiques to obtain compliance via leverage. Another kind of leverage thing here. If your partner's constantly trying to guilt you, constantly talking about what you ought to be doing and how you owe them or you should feel bad or feel shame because you're not meeting their expectations in some capacity, well, if they keep doing that and you've indicated you don't like it and you've told them what they're doing and asked them to stop, and they keep doing it, you need to leave. That is not an acceptable way to interact with people. Fundamentally, a healthy interaction, both parties recognize the autonomy of the other, respect the autonomy of the other, or recognize their own agency and respect their own agency. For people who are toxic, quote unquote, relationships, a significant component of the problem is a failure to recognize they have agency, and also a failure to understand how to use that agency to affect the changes and attain the outcomes they want. If you don't believe you have meaningful agency, then you become extremely reactive. So it's not their fault. It's almost certainly insecure attachment style and childhood trauma, but regardless, it's not something you should put up with. You cannot take ownership of that problem. Number 15, your partner does not credit your work. If you're working hard to hear your partner, acknowledge things when you're wrong, make amends, change behaviors, whatever, and you're not getting credited for that, in other words, your partner doesn't say, well, thank you so much for changing, but instead says, well, you didn't change enough, or you didn't change completely, or whatever. Well, then they're taking you for granted. The very high likelihood that they're not even doing a portion of this work if they're not giving you any credit for the work. People who understand how to make mutual sacrifices in a relationship want to credit their partner. They want their partner to succeed. They see their partner as a reflection of themselves. For other people, though, who don't, which ties them to being a lone wolf too, they'll take their partners for granted and think that everything they like is the bare minimum expectation, and the highest point score that person can get is 0. Everything that they do that's imperfect causes them to get scolded or something. It's just like there's no appreciation, then there's no reason for you to stay. You're not getting anything out of it. You're just being someone's bitch, you know. And I know, I get how it is. I'm not trying to belittle you at all if that's where the situation you've gotten yourself into. These things happen gradually over time. It's a slow boil, and before you know it, you're allowing your boundaries to get crossed, and you didn't even know exactly where your boundaries were. 16. Your partner repeatedly treats unintentional mistakes the same way as willful wrongdoings. So keep calm and remember accidents happen. This is an important one because a healthy partner wants to forgive you, wants you to have a reason why that happened. You know, a healthy partner walks in the kitchen and goes, my clumsy partner broke another dish. Let me just clean that up. An unhealthy partner goes in the kitchen and says, Eric, I cannot believe you're always breaking my dishes. Like that shit, you know. And it's like, well, I didn't do it on purpose, obviously. So the thing is, a failure to distinguish between accidents and intentional harm doing is a failure to recognize the fundamental duty of a partner to make that differentiation in order to determine what kind of forgiveness to do, how much is required of the other to obtain forgiveness. If your partner doesn't get actually done something by accident, it's kind of boneheaded and caused some harms of some sort, like crashed the car or whatever, a good partner will never add to that, to the stress of the other. Just, it's okay, don't worry about it. Well, it's accidents happen. Shit happens. Number 17, your partner repeatedly applies a double standard when judging a matter of significance and will not, and will further not, or and will not, and further will not or cannot acknowledge the behavior nor commit to changing it. So this one sort of ties in with the admit when you're wrong thing, but it's specifically saying that you've got a double standard in play and the person is continuing to apply it. So, you know, when you scream names at me, you're abusive. But when I scream names at you, I'm not. When you scream names at me and I go, hey, why'd you call me a fucking asshole? And you say, well, I was mad. I'm expected to just be like, okay, good enough, I guess. But when I try to use that excuse, it gets me nowhere. That's the double standard. That sort of thing. If they're constantly doing that, then you can't rely on them to be fair, and you can't rely on them to have your best interests in mind, fundamentally. Number 18. This is another one that suggests that a person just fundamentally doesn't know how to love, was raised in such a toxic environment that they do this. Your partner repeatedly expresses satisfaction in your misfortune. If they seem to like it when you fall, if they seem to be rooting against you repeatedly over time, consistently, you don't need to be in that relationship. Everybody deserves a cheerleader to some extent. There's various psychology shit. This person wants a cheerleader type. Everybody deserves to feel as though their significant other is cheering for them, appreciating them, valuing them, loving them, and affirming them. If they're doing this, it is time to go. Number 19, your partner is constantly trying to change you. No matter how nicely they're doing it, if they're constantly correcting you, if they're constantly indicating how you could more optimally be you, then they're telling you, whether they say it in explicit words or not, that you are not good enough for them as you are. Now, note, if your partner is specifically always addressing behaviors on your end that consistently are the same thing, you're not changing, that are legitimate critiques of behaviors, that's a different matter. It's responsive. So, in other words, if you keep going up to your husband and saying, you're lazy and dumb, and your husband says again and again, honey, remember we've talked about this. It's not okay to talk to me like that, and we'd like to negotiate how we talk about each other and be fair to each other. That's not constantly trying to change his partner. That's saying there are these stark lines that are universal. It is never okay for one partner to be openly disrespectful and contemptuous, and they're speaking on a regular basis to the other partner. You got to leave that relationship. And number 20, your partner displays reflexive oppositionality on multiple occasions. If it seems difficult for you to figure out what your partner wants, that, one day you can say, hey, I guess, I guess we don't have time to go to the store. We only got 30 minutes. She goes, yeah, we do. There's enough time to go to the store. Okay, go to the store. Next day you go, well, I guess we got time to go to the store. There's only 30 minutes. She goes, no, we don't have time. It's only 30 minutes. He goes, the sky is blue. She goes, no, it's not. He goes, the sky's not blue. She goes, yes, it is. And there's just this continual, just relentless drive towards oppositionality, towards dismantling the ability of one of the two partners to effectively communicate and solve problems with words, because there are no relationship problems that get addressed or solved that process doesn't travel through the land of words. So you've heard it a million times, I'm sure. In relationships, communication is ultimately the make or break thing. And what I've learned in my recent years and thinking about all this stuff is that a person cannot meaningfully communicate with another person until and unless they learn humility. That reflexive adversarialness, oppositional defiant disorder, you might call it, an urge to just reflexively negate everything your partner is saying or doing, that is it's unsustainable completely because of this language element and because of the fact the stories we tell come true. You need to, if you want to be a healthy partner, if you want to be in a healthy relationship, if you want to improve your current relationship, you need to make sure that about 80 to 90% of your interactions with your significant other are positive and affirming, or at worst neutral. If you start getting negative interactions more than about 20% of the time, it gets very questionable. Now, there's some wiggle room here, because if you get more than 20% negative interactions, quote unquote, but each of those interactions actually produces solvency, well, then they're not even negative interactions. They're win-win, mutuality, reciprocity things. So it's a tricky statistic, but if you think about it, when your partner says something like, hey, look at that tree, the best kind of response, the response that's most relationship building, is, yeah, I see it. What made you notice that? Some sort of thing like that, right? It is interesting. I'm curious to what your thoughts are. Engaging them directly, rewarding them for saying something to you by choosing to value what they said enough to engage it. There's a set of different ways in which people can respond to their partners. That's like the best, most meaningfully engaged. Another level would be, yeah, I saw a tree one time that looked like that. It was cool. That's making it, now it's my turn. And that's not as good, but your partner's not going to be super annoyed by it probably. Then there's, uh-huh. It's like, quit boring me with your nonsense. But it gets even, it could get worse. It could get, God, I cannot believe the stupid ass shit you talk about, right? And in that case, you're really talking about a negative interaction. Negative interactions, even if they are fully negative, can be manageable if, and only if, there's accountability, acknowledgement, and amends. So there's some process they come back together and talk about it. If injustice happens in a relationship, in other words, one party is unfair to the other party, and it never gets resolved in language, then resentment takes hold and begins to build. The more a person avoids taking responsibility for when they're at fault, the more that resentment builds in the one party who does take responsibility. If neither party takes responsibility and accepts fault for anything, then that relationship has no possible chance of surviving anyway. The only healthy relationship is one in which both parties engage in a process of objective self-criticism and willful harm prevention of the other, of decided conscious identification with the other, like their pain is my pain, their pleasure is my pleasure, and a willingness, most of all, to trust and to be trusted, to make the real commitment to ignore one's feelings in the moment when circumstances are appropriately call upon you to do that. Which is to say, it doesn't matter how mad I am at you, honey. I still love you just the same. That's not going to change at all. My anger is temporary. It's just a feeling. But love is a behavior. Love is a habit of treating you kindly. It's a habit of affirming you. It's a habit of harm prevention. And it's a habit of fairness. It's a willful decision to celebrate and value the other party rather than treat them as a cog in your own machine. So anyway, if you have a partner, you're in a relationship, but you're thinking maybe it's not the right one, if you hit any of these 20 things, it goes like, yep, that's my partner, you should probably leave. If you hit more than one, yeah, that's my partner, that's my partner, that's my partner, you should have left a long time ago. For some of us, it can be extremely difficult to understand that our own feelings are important. That if somebody's hurting our feelings, we shouldn't just get over it. That we should make sure it's resolved. Figure out if we were right to have our feelings hurt, wrong to have our feelings hurt. Figure it out honestly, authentically, not because we're being fed a line of bull, being compelled to internalize some nonsense, or because perhaps we're assuming things not in evidence or whatever. If you're feeling hurt by your partner, like they don't treat you nicely, step back and think about the people in your life who don't treat you like that. Think about the couples you've seen who are nice to each other, who love each other. And remember There's nothing wrong with you. You deserve joy, ecstasy, and your soulmate. And he or she is out there for you. So try not to let a toxic relationship fester any longer than you have to. But for as long as you're in it, and as you get out of it, remember, you've learned a shit ton. Especially if you haven't encountered that kind of shit before. And you'll come away from it much wiser and much more able to meaningfully and effectively love another person. Thanks for watching. The end.